So I'm just up in the city centre. I'm meeting my fellow Wickermen for to go see John Fogarty in concert, a bona fide living legend, who apparently still has the vocal chops for it. So we'll head down in a while and see. Anyway, I'm a little bit early, and I was trying to find some way of killing a bit of time. So I went to my go-to, which is to go to Hodges Figgis to have a little route around. And I have too many books. If Mrs. Arklow sees this, she's actually going to kill me, because I have a lot of books lined up to read, and I'm very progress is very slow, and it's even worse than that because I was looking at a very long discussion analysis video on YouTube by a guy called Wendy Goon. He's very, very good actually, but it was a 5.5 hour discussion of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, and which I just couldn't resist looking at the entire 5.5 hours of it. Now, that's a book I read about 10 years ago, and it's a phenomenal book. It's phenomenal book, but it's absolutely distressingly violent. It's just horrific. But so as good a book as it is, it really is a kind of a one and done sort of book, But after I watched that analysis video, I thought to myself, well, I'll just take it down off the shelf and I'll just read the first couple of pages again. I'm not going to read it though. So that was just 3 days ago, and I'm about halfway through it now. And I am enjoying it a lot though. It's horrific, but it's not quite as bad as I remembered. Not so far. And Cormac McCarthy has some other themes layered in, to that book as well. There's quite a lot to be said about profaning religion in it, and the character of Judge Holden is a very your man Wendy Goon's hypothesis is that Judge Holden is a literal representation of Satan, and it'd be hard to disagree with it. But anyway, that book, which I've already read, and I've got 5 of Patrick O'Brien's Captain Jack Aubrey and Dr. Stephen Maturin books, having finished the absolutely fantastic Master and Commander, so they're lined up. I've begun another one of them. I haven't touched the Plotinus's Aeneids yet. Anyway, forget about all that. It's dangerous to go into a bookshop, because even though I have all that, and I gave Mrs. Arklow a solemn promise that I wouldn't buy anything new, I picked up Goethe's collected works, and it's obviously it's got Faust in it, which is the main thing I want to read, but there's a hell of a lot more in it there. Now I've justified it to myself that it's poems and essays, so I can just dip in and out of it. It's not like a big commitment of a read, so that's how I'm coping with that one. But just on the subject of bookshops, and Hodges Figgis is a fantastic bookshop on Dawson Street in Dublin city centre. When you go in, you're like, this is an exercise in futility here. There's so much to potentially read. How do you discriminate or discern? Well, obviously you have to go in with an idea in your head what you'd like to read. But I have such an unfiltered way of looking at things. Everything draws my eye simultaneously, and I like to have a little peruse through what in older philosophy books I might like to read, or something that's not much more contemporaneous than the 70s kind of Derrida, that sort of stuff. and preferably older. I'm thinking, well, is there all this new philosophy out there? Maybe, this stuff has all been knocked into a cocked hat by someone else over the last 30 years, So, but I'm prejudiced against that kind of thing because obviously some of my outlook views academia as a captured institution at this point, and I doubt that anything much of any huge amount of value is issuing or emanating from academia these days. But maybe I'm completely wrong about that. Maybe I'll find out one day. But then just contemporary fiction, wandering through. Obviously, a lot of stuff is aimed at a female readership. I'm trying to stay broad-minded. I'm trying. I'm trying. And I'm sure to a female readership, a lot of that stuff really is appealing. It does seem to be the sassy protagonist who's given up on love, but in the most unlikely of circumstances, finds some sort of quirky beau who reconnects her to her soul. There seems to be quite a lot of that, and I leafed through the back of quite a lot of them in there. I just, I'm being a bit of a git saying that. I'm sure there's very good writing within that genre as well. But again, I'm sure it's very, gender kind of dependent, if that's a good way of phrasing it. But yeah, a bewildering variety. You're like, oh man, it's like you feel obliged to buy something. Hence the, Goethe purchase. So it's a bit of a danger for the likes of me going in, but I can't help it either. I can't resist it. So it's always a lovely place to visit. It makes me kind of think that I waste too much time looking at the friggin' internet, and that I really should be far more structured about whatever reading I do myself, So I keep saying I'm going to do it. I have a pocket pad in the back of the car if I'm doing any reading in the car. And it's stuff like this, or I have friggin'. I have you can't really see it there, but I have Yuval Noah Harari's Homo Deus there as well, to take some notes, just to try and remember, what I'm reading. It's not necessarily like I'm even going to do anything with it, but it's easier to, if stuff is densely written, it's easier to understand if you take notes. I think Margot would approve of the Goethe book and reading about the travails of Faust. So I'm very happy to have that in my possession now, regardless of how foolish the purchase might have seemed at the time I was getting it. I was very interested to note that there's a biography, or so-called biography, of George Floyd in the Blacktivist section of Hodges Figgis. I came within a gnat's bollock of buying it. I was like, well, I got to get my hands on this. No, I haven't. I didn't buy it, but I have a terrible feeling the next time I go back, though, I'm going to. I want to find out more about George. I've been critical of him in the past, and maybe, just maybe, there's a treasure trove of insights to be found there. So maybe I've been far too harsh and too cynical and ironic, and maybe I need to evolve or progress my worldview a little bit. So, but that'll have to wait until the next visit to a good bookshop anyway. So anyway, I have to see John Fogarty now. Thanks for listening.